All right, everyone, good morning. Some great work by our clients. We're here today to talk about Smoke. Smoke's been one of the big stories of the show here at NAB 2012. We're really excited and happy that there's been such buzz about it. We started talking about Smoke with this tagline when we were doing a bit of teasing about the idea that Smoke is changing, but it's also going to change a lot about the way people work in the industry. So I have my friend Ken here. He's going to take us through a demo of the product so you can actually see it in action. But I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking to everybody about how we kind of came to create what's really a brand new solution for editing and effects. I think to kind of set the stage of what this solution is and who it's really for, this is truly a solution aimed at the professional video market. I think the last year there's been a lot of changes in professional video. There's been changes to products, new solutions, a lot of capability, a lot of great tools out there. But I think that folks in this market have been struggling a lot to figure out what their workflow is going to look like. There's also been this explosion in screens that we need to put content on. It says millions of screens, and I debated. I think they should probably say billions when you consider all the smartphones and things that are out there. So this leads to something we always refer to as the content creator's dilemma. How do you create content that's going to be at the level you need it to be to stand out in this sea of content that's out there? So everybody's putting stuff out. You really need to make sure your content stands out. And one of the things that you'll find is no matter how many screens are out there, no matter where the budgets go, your client expectations are always at the top. So you've always got to deliver your best work. So at Autodesk, we know a lot about that. I mean, you guys just saw our show reel. I mean, it's amazing stuff. We have clients that make incredible commercials, film, design unbelievable characters, or actually highly believable characters in our CG applications. So what we knew is that we had this core technology we could use to kind of bring to market to solve some problems in the professional video space. And that's what we're doing with the new Smoke. The new Smoke is a radically new solution. It really is changing, and we believe it's going to change the way people finish their content. Now you can see here our animation showing it on a laptop. That's one of those big changes. We'll talk about how platforms have changed a little bit. But first, let me give you a bit of a preview of Smoke. One of the things you're going to notice right away is this beautiful new UI, this connection of editing and effects together. This is really what's cool. Is audio on this, Dave? It's okay if not. So just a quick preview. What I wanted to kind of capture there is just how much you can do with Smoke, and that's what you'll see in the presentation. There's really so much capability brought together, so much of that heritage of visual effects and finishing in 3D that Autodesk is known for. So the product, of course, is big news, but the other big news is the price. So we're actually bringing the solution to market for $3,495. So, and just for reference, same price as our 3D applications, 3ds Max and Maya. And if you're not aware, Smoke used to cost $15,000, so it's quite a good deal. I see you're smiling in the front row. Get your checkbook out now. We'll talk about when it's available in a few minutes. But we really do think this is the effects revolution for editors. So that was really core to putting this together. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I just want to be clear. I think when you're going to create a solution for the professional market, you really need to listen to that market. And I think that's a mistake that manufacturers sometimes make. They kind of come out with a solution that they think people are going to want, they put it out there, and they see kind of how it fits. Well, we didn't do that. We actually went to the market and asked a lot of questions. And this is actually one of the first and most important questions that we ask people. What's your biggest challenge? What is it every day in your workflows that slows you down? And we didn't specify creative tools or hardware or storage or whatever. We just wanted to see what they were thinking. And I don't know if you've ever done this, but if you ever have a lot of data, like written responses and verbatim responses, put them in a word cloud generator because you get a really good snapshot of kind of what the concerns are or what's used most often. And I think, it's pretty obvious. And I think we would all agree time can be a challenge across industries, but think about what this means in terms of editors and creative people. Time in an edit suite is really the time you waste, rendering to go between different applications. It's time spent archiving. It's all these things that clients don't necessarily want to pay for. And what's happened as demands have grown, people have had to adopt increasingly complicated pipelines because the reality is that this is not what the editor does today. The editor actually does all this other stuff around it. And the idea of a specialist is something that's rapidly going away. Specialized tasks are not done by one person. They're done by all these different people. So the editor has to take care of all of this. And I think as technology has advanced, whether it's camera technology. And I mean, at the show just this week, we see amazing advances in camera technology, bringing 4K really to the masses. But you know, everything from the effects and all of that, this creates a real nightmare. So editors have adopted these complex pipelines and workflows. This is my favorite way to put it, because there's one of our responses was this: help me stop working for free. And obviously no one actually works for free, but I always like to point out that if you do work for free, I want to get your business card before you leave the theater. But the reason you wind up working for free is because the complexity in your pipeline, you wind up doing all these things that, as I said, your clients don't want to pay for. You know, if your workflow is too complicated, your clients don't care. They just want a great end result. Or if changes take a long time to be processed, well, too bad. I just want to see the changes and I want to see them right there. So that's why efficiency within your creative workflow is really important. And that drove how we decided to design the new Smoke. We wanted to take all these different tasks and try to bring them together in one application. Okay, so that was really the design decision. So I just give you a quick overview of what Ken's going to show you, and then I'll let him go and he'll give you a good in-depth demo of the product itself. But a couple of key things to look for: the new Smoke UI. So we really went back to the basics on this, and we said, what kind of environment does an editor want to work on, and how can we integrate effects into that environment? So you'll see a track-based UI, you'll see familiar Mac-like conventions, and you'll see effects integrated right into it. We also looked at system requirements. So we wanted to make sure that you could use this product on the reality of the systems and platforms people are using today, because the days of only being able to edit and finish in a big edit suite full of dedicated hardware, it's certainly not the case anymore. You'll see lots of creative tools. Won't spend too much time on this here, but Autodesk is known for that. And then finally, I want you to watch for Connect effects. This is our new workflow that really brings the full power of node-based compositing right into the timeline in a way that's designed to really respect and keep it comfortable for editors to work with. So the power of node-based compositing, but the familiarity of a timeline workflow. So let me show you a little about the UI. I always think it's funny, how do you do a UI demo? Well, I just want to show you what to look for as Ken goes through so you can really see how this is optimized for the editor. But I do like this point that we really built this for editors that know Final Cut and Media Composer. Now, I'm not saying that's the only people who are going to use this, but what I'm saying is people that come from this background, and this could be Adobe Premiere as well, but track-based editing, this very familiar workflow, they're going to be able to sit down and start using this product in 5 or 10 minutes. It's really that easy to use. And if you just take a look here, this is just a quick video they'll play through. You'll see things that do look familiar. So everything from the standard 2-up view and a timeline that looks familiar to things like trimming, right? Even how you work with the application, all the Mac menu commands, but you know, being able to drag and drop media in, a logical bin structure that keeps all your media live right there as you work. This is all really important. This is the stuff that shouldn't be hard, right? Compositing and effects, that stuff's hard enough. Let's not make this part hard too. Speaking of effects, oh, actually, we'll do this one next. Yeah, this is the platform requirements. And as I said, making sure it works on everything from a laptop, Mac laptop through a Mac Pro workstation. You know, Smoke is a 64-bit application. It takes full advantage of GPU to give interactivity when you're in compositing or effects mode. So it'll take advantage of whatever you throw at it, but we wanted to make sure that you got a great performance even when you're working on a laptop. And things like Thunderbolt storage and some of the technology that's out. We have a AJA IOXT over here. This is amazing technology that makes things like laptops and iMacs a totally legitimate professional configuration. Now, one of the things that we looked at in our application is how we rendered and processed media. So at the core of Smoke, the entire image processing pipeline is designed to respect the RGB 444 color space. So really creating beautiful and pristine images. But one of the things we looked at is if you're using this color space, you don't necessarily want to store all your media as 444 RGB. That just takes up a lot of space, especially with all the great, highly efficient codecs that are out there. So one of the big changes we made in the new Smoke is that you can actually work intermediate as ProRes. So you can actually have ProRes as your source format, ProRes as your intermediate format, and ProRes out. So this again starts changing the equation. You could use a laptop with a FireWire drive as your storage, something that hasn't been possible before. And then finally on the creative tools. This is our new Media Hub workflow. And I know we may say that media isn't really a creative application, but I like talking about this new media workflow because we really went back and looked at how other applications, including our own, were working with media, and we realized a lot of the conventions were based around file management and file I/O, and I mean file I/O in that Word documents and image files and things like this. They weren't really optimized as a modern media browser. So with the new Media Hub, it's the workflow from everything from this browser that lets you do things like drag and drop red files and set your debayering and color science settings, to logically working with image sequences and presenting an image sequence to you as a clip that you can add metadata to and tag, instead of presenting it as 500 individual files. So you'll see a little of the Media Hub in the demo. This is our Color Warper. The Color Warper is an amazing tool. It basically brings professional color correction right into the NLE. And you may be arguing that, well, there are a lot of NLEs that have color correction capabilities, and you're right. But what's unique about Smoke is that it brings this color correction capability at this level right into the compositing space as well. And Ken's got a couple examples that include some of the color correction, and you'll see how having access to things like 3D lighting tools will really change the way you approach look development. It's not just about making it lighter, darker, more or less color and shading and masking. It's about really creating a new look to a scene. And then finally, Action. So Action is really a super tool, and this is something that's shared across our high-end applications, and it's here in the new Smoke. And what it allows you to do is things like mix video and 3D layers. You can take any object and start adding lighting effects, and you can see how fast and interactive that is. I love this. This is actually taking a flat video layer. It's mapped to a geometry, and you can bend and warp and shape it. So having a true 3D compositing space, and I say that because a lot of compositing applications offer certain levels of 3D, but really when you're working here in Smoke, you have access to all these tools that you can use not to create 3D renders. It's not like you're working in a 3ds Max or Maya workflow, but what you're able to do is deliver better looking motion graphics, composites, change the lighting and look of scenes. It's really cool, and you'll see this in the presentation. And then finally, the last thing, and Ken will show you this and talk about this, which is Connect Effects. And this is how we brought it all together. This is a brand new workflow inside of the new Smoke that really connects editing and effects really like never before. So with that, I'll let Ken take it away. And I'm going to stand here and make Ken's life hard because I'm going to produce a little bit.
Mark's
I'll
my
ask
boss,
him to
by
do
the
things.
way.
I'll say, can you do it more of this, less of that? So we'll have fun. But I'll let you get
He's just trying
started.
to mess with me, just messing
I'll
with
step
me.
back.
So one of the things I think it's important to point out is, I mean, if you've seen our booths before, when you're doing a pod demo, generally I've been like almost sequestered away from the people that you're demoing to. And this year we've had this very hands-on feel to it. The reason why we did that is because what I've experienced is exactly what we hoped. I have all these editors who come over there. Mark says, we can show you phenomenal tools. Smoke has been known for that forever. But this whole new editorial workflow we did, we really wanted you to see exactly. So I sit there and someone says, well, I would do it this way inside of Final Cut. I do it right here. He's like, that's exactly how I would do it. I would do it this way in Avid Media Composer. I show him how we do it here. He's like, wow, I feel like I'm at home. So that's really what we were aiming to do, and I'm glad that we have achieved it. So I've got a timeline up, and as Mark said, here's our new beautiful Smoke UI. I've got it set up with my sequence on one side, and I got my timeline, my sequence on this side, and my source over here. We've got our bins, and obviously as I start to select any file that's over here, I can start importing. I can set my in and outs, do my drags into my timelines. We've got our all our editorial tools that you could bring in your media in either through hotkeys or through icons or drag and drop and so on. We also have this nice swipe menu on the side here. I can change how my views are looking, whether it's one player, the source sequence, and triptych view, which I'll utilize in a second when I'm doing color correction and matching and so on. Down here, obviously, we have our timeline, and it's unlimited layers of video and audio. It's all what you typically would expect. So we're going to focus on a couple shots here. We want to do some color correction work to it. And let's go and zoom in on this one. So here's a shot. First of all, I'm sorry, I always got to give credit to our clients and friends at Oakley. Oakley is the company that actually built this shot, this whole sequence inside of Smoke, and they were very kind to let us use this for our demos here at NAB. So again, I just want to say thank you to them for their kindness of allowing us to use this. So now we'll come back down, and I'm looking through this, and I want to do some color correction to this. Now, these are all red files, okay? They're all epic files. If I hold a hotkey, I can see the data information for this clip. The reason why I'm doing this is when these clips were all brought into Smoke, they were brought in at quarter res. And that's fine for most of the work that I'm going to do. But why do you shoot red? Why do you want all these high-end files? Because when you're doing color correction, you're doing keying, you need that extra information. That's why you want to use that. So this is the beauty of Smoke is you can mix and match all different resolutions, whether it's QuickTime, Red, Eerie, whatever, all in your timeline. And in this case, this video file, I would actually like to bring this in as a higher debayering. So as Mark showed you in his video, we have this thing called the Media Hub. I jump into Media Hub, and I have access to every single drive that's on my system in here, and I want to go and navigate to find the folder where my red files are. If I come over here, I can just use a bookmark to jump right to it. So here's all the actual red files that are on my storage. On the pods, we got it on the Promise RAIDs through Thunderbolt. Here I have a dedicated storage source. What's great is if I find that clip, which is right here, if I double-click on it, I get this little preview window that's giving me all this information. Yes, you can definitely drag from the Finder and drop right in, but using this Media Hub, the modern-day media management tool, is really powerful for what it offers you. Not only can I set my in and outs of my clips before I bring them into Smoke, I get all this data, I get all this metadata about the actual red file, the camera information, all this stuff. And then the other part is really important is the file-specific options. So because I've selected red, Smoke automatically switches to red, and I get all this different information as to how I'm going to bring this file in. So I go to deburring, and as I said, it was set to a lower deburring that I wanted to. So if I say, let's bring this to half good, or let's bring this to full, now when I take and drag this file, I can close this, I pick it up, and I drop it into my folder. I now bring in the red file, a new version of it, but it's being deburred at a full res. So if we go back to my timeline, here it is right here. I can start to work with this and scrub and play it back and so on. Now I'll start setting my in and outs. Okay, I want to put this in my timeline. So I go to the frame where I want to pull in the in out. So I say right there is going to be my in. I click in. We move forward some more frames here. And I want to say, okay, this one I want to have over here. And I say, here's my out. And now we want to bring it in. So I can just pick it up, drag it down, all your typical workflow. So there, it's brought into my timeline. I can do typical editorial work. I'll go to that layer. We want to go and maybe cut. Simple stuff like this. I select it. I make a cut. Whoop, bear with me. Wrong hotkey. Bring that back over there. Select that and say cut. That's what I wanted. Drag it and rivet. So now you can see I've got the full res. If I hold my hotkey again, the top layer has the full res. The bottom one has the low res. So I'm going to tell this, I just want to pick this up and say override this one. So just like you would do in other applications. But this is that flexibility of being able to use all different media inside of your timeline. So now let's get into the color correction tool. Now I want to go and fix this. So the sky is really kind of bland. The arms are kind of pasty. He's got a lot of sun going on him there. But if we look at the clip that's right before it, he's got some really nice color here. So I want to take data from that clip and apply it onto this clip I just brought in. So to use my triptych view, I'm going to jump over here, triptych view, and I'm going to tell it I want to look at the current clip and the clips that are right before it. So let me come back over here. And I want to unlock this. Well, I'm on the wrong clip. There we go. So let me go and unlock that so I can move them independently. This is what's great. These are all still totally independent. I can introduce, I can play them back independently. I can say this clip I actually want to, let me turn off the lock one more time. I can come to this viewport and say this clip I want to look right at this frame. I want this guy to be at that frame. And then this one over here, we want to be looking at that clip. Okay. So let's apply a tool. How do we apply a tool inside of Smoke? It's very simple. You can select your clip. You can right-click. You can choose Add Effect. You get this ribbon, which we call the Effects ribbon. And these are your bread-and-butter tools. These are things you use every single day in your editorial workflow, whether it's time warps, color corrections, Axis, which I'll show you in a minute, which is a super tool. It's got keying, color correction, and so on. I'm just going to choose Color Corrector. You'll notice here along this bar now, as I add my tools, they're just being aligned right along the top of the timeline. And I access my color correction parameters. If I come in here and make this like a drastic green, and I say, let's play that back, you can see, whoop, wrong view, bear with me. I come back to this view and say, play that back. So here I am playing back that full res red file with a color correction immediately inside of my timeline. Now, that's not the effect that I really want, obviously, okay? So let's step into the color correction tool. These parameters here are just a subset of what's available to me. So when I go over here and I click this option called Enter Editor, I can speak. By Thursday, I'll say that right. We go in here. Now I have access to all the color correction tools that I have available. We can see there's the adjustment I made to the green and the gain. Well, this is a great color correction tool. This is the Autodesk color correction tool, and it's very powerful, but it's not the one I want to use. If you look over here on the left side, it reads CC. When I click on that, I toggle into what's called the Color Warper. The Color Warper is an extremely sophisticated color correction tool. First of all, if you have the Avid color balls, the board, it works with it great. We've got it on demonstration on our pods on both sides. But it also has these great trackballs for adjusting your highlights, your shadows. But it also has really powerful matching tools. So that's what I want to first utilize. So I'm going to take and sample my sky here and tell it to take the color from this sky. So it's simple. I select, I say this is what I want to affect, and I want you to take it from there. Bam, it does it. But the problem is it's affecting his arm, it's affecting his jacket, his shirt, his hat. It's affecting everything. So we need to isolate the pixels or the color value that we really want to affect. So if I go back and undo that really quickly, I need to make a selective. This is the power of the color warper. If I go to my work on, I tell it, I don't want to work on the master. I'll choose a selective. Now Smoke allows me to come in here and simply pick the color value I want to affect. And also, what's great is I can look at the matte that I just created. So we can see while we got a good job, we still need to finesse this a little bit. This little area down here, that's what's controlling it. This is where I'm picking or creating the matte. But it also gives me great tools like tolerance and softness. So if I want to add more tolerance to this, I can come down and click this pick button. I just come in and click and drag. So now we're adding more tolerance. We're adding more blue to the matte that we're going to color correct. He's obviously wearing a blue shirt, so I want to kind of remove that, right? So we go over here, and I'll choose softness, and then I come back into the screen. I just start clicking it. Click softness and start clicking and dragging, and we pull that away. So that's awesome. I can do this very quickly. I was pretty impressed. Best one this week so far.
Not bad, Ken. Not bad.
I'm getting by Thursday. I'll have it. But anyways, we can also turn on the Gaussian blur. I want to soften this a little bit. So we'll come down here and just make a minor adjustment. Not 8. I want to go like about 2 or that's good. So now let's go and do that same color correction effect. So I go back to my results so we can see what's going to happen. But wait, before they do that, I just really want to emphasize that's what we did. We isolated him from the sky, right? Now we got this beautiful pink. No, that's not what I want. Let me undo that. So what we'll do is go and undo that, and now we'll come down and do our select. So I say, that's the color I want you to affect, and I want you to take that color information from there, and boom, beautiful. Now we've got the issue, as I said, his arms look a little white in this clip compared to the day where he's got the nice tan. So we want to give him a tan. So I'm going to go to another selective in my color correction tool, and I'll choose Pick Custom, and I'll just click and drag right in the view. I'll click and drag right in the view, and I'll sample his skin tone. Okay, now let's go back to the result. I want to zoom in so I can see what I'm doing here. So there's his arm. That's what I want to get. Here's where I want to apply it. So let's go and say, let's take Select. That's what I want you to affect, and I want you to take it from over here. And there. Now he's got a little bit of a sunburn, it looks like, but that's okay. It gets me 99% of the there in this case. Let's go back and just fine-tune that. So this is the beauty. Yes, the color correction got me 99%. I can finesse, fine-tune it, and continue to add effects to this if I want to. Now what I want to do, I'm going to take this further. I'm going to go back to my timeline. I'm going to look at the two view, and I want to take that color correction, and I want to put it on this clip, the one after it. It's simple. Just pick it up. Drag and drop, pick it up. Bear with me, people. It's great that you can modify the UI as much as you can, but I didn't want to do that. But let's pick up my color correction and just drag and drop it. Now, you'll notice that the skin tone changed. Some of the other colors changed that we sampled, but not the sky. And the reason why that didn't change is because the sample we chose for the sky on that first clip is so different from this sky. So this is the power of the non-destructive environment of Smoke. I'll go to the color correction tool that's applied to this new clip, and I'll just go to selective number 1, because that was how we pulled the sky in the first one, and I'll just tell it, pick that, and now boom, it goes and adds the color correction to the new matte that I created. Very flexible, very sophisticated color correction tools right in your timeline. Now, it's great that we can copy effects. Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. Something
Can you play those back for me?
I'm sorry. I keep forgetting that, Mark. Let me select both of those very quickly, and I'll process them. That's going to take a whopping 3 seconds to process. And remember, that is full red files that just processed in a matter of seconds. I'll go back a couple frames here, and we play this back. Awesome. So it's great that we can do that. It's great we can copy effects from one to another. But what if I want to have effects across a line of different edits or different cuts and have like a master control of it, right? So that's where we bring in what are called gap effects. So I'm going to select my 3 clips that I want to apply an effect to. And I'm going to go up another layer. Remember, we can have unlimited layers of video and audio. I'm going to put effects in an area of a layer that has nothing there. So we go down and we hit a hotkey. I now designate that I want to put an effect in that area. So this is what's great. I go to my tools. I choose color correction. And now I come over here and I can just start doing things like changing the gain, the offset. I can darken this up. The main part to understand is since it's a gap effect above everything else, it's going to affect all the clips that are below it. And keep in mind that gap effect is treated like a clip. I can edit it, I can extend it, I can do all the different things you would do to an actual video clip, but I'm going to leave it just to focus on these 3 clips. And then we'll go one step further. I want to add more effects to this. So I choose the wipe tool. And you'll see now the wipe is added. Now the default of a wipe is to wipe the one layer to visibly to see the other layer. And it's just a mask that is being animated for you automatically. And we ship with tons of different presets that you can choose. And we come down here, I've got Mark's favorite, the heart, but I'm not going to use that this time. I'm using Dean's favorite, the keyhole this time. So now you can see we've got this keyhole transformation, okay? While we're having fun with this, the point is this is just a mask. So if I want to edit it or change it, again, you step into the editor, you have full control over this, okay? I can change that, or better yet, I can say, I don't want that. I'm just going to delete that. And then we'll go back to our first frame and turn on preview effects. I'll zoom back here. So now I can quickly go and add my own mask because, like I said, I want to create like a very cool vignette effect. You can even hold a hotkey, which I probably should have done, and draw on the mask right on the screen. But I'm doing it this way. I'll switch it. Now, of course, we have, as any masking tools, you have your offset. You know, we can do softness inside or out. But I really want to have more control over that. So this is what's great. I can switch from being softness to being our advanced gradients. Now we have independent control of the fall off or the softness for each control point for inside and out. And what I need to do is scale all of them. So I'm going to switch to my scale tool. I'll come in here and I can just very quickly, easily scale and create the effect that I want, which is something like that. It can all be keyframed, can be tracked, and so on. So let's go back to the timeline. And now I have my vignette effect, but it's affecting every clip underneath it. And keep in mind, as I said, what if I also realize I want this to be extended longer, so I can select that, and I can select it, and I can go and edit and change the in and outs of this, and all these are effects here. All very non-destructive, changing anything you want on the fly. So that's an introduction to some of the workflow in the timeline.
So I was thinking, since we've been talking about look development, let's go ahead and stay in this project. Can you show us that other scene? Because
absolutely.
How many times do you get into a situation where you have a shot like this and your producer says, make it, what do we say, 50% cooler?
10% happier.
Yeah.
Those were the exact words that, so we were up in Montreal talking about what clients say. Make it 10% happier.
But you know you've got your filter tools and things like this, and we could start, go ahead and park on that shot for me, Ken. You could start doing some color correction or whatever with it, but let's say we want to really make something special. Almost take it into the motion graphics and compositing realm. What's cool about Smoke and what you'll see is that Ken is able to start working in the timeline, and when it comes time to go into that compositing mode, he's not leaving the application. He'll do it all in Smoke. So
Exactly.
I'll let you go, and I'll just step in when I want to see
Please
changes.
do. So what I want
directions.
to do is, let's say the client says, I don't know what I want. I just want something, okay? So typical your workflow is you're going to be round tripping. You're probably going to use multiple applications to end up giving the client what they want, and you will deliver it. But you're jumping around. You're doing all this round tripping. I can do it all in Smoke, and that's really what we're trying to focus on. So I want to put the word Oakley behind the guy and behind the trees. That's my first thought. I thought this may be what my client will like. So we're going to do it by simply duplicating this clip. I'll go up 2 layers. So now I've got 2 versions of the same clip with an empty space in between. I'll leave it empty so I can put my text in there. So now we want to start doing luma keys and masks to isolate the elements on the top layer. So it's simple. I go to my selection, I go to my tools, I'll choose the axis tool. I've talked about the axis a couple times. Again, you see the parameters come to me where if I want to rotate this, I could. If I want to change the X and Y position or scale, I could. This is all great, but I want to step into this tool because this is a super tool. What I mean by that is, look at this. When I step in, I have all these other tools available to me, not just about the transformation and the axis. I can zoom back a little bit, and the other thing that's critical about this is this object doesn't have to be a flat object anymore. It's actually geometry. So if I come over to my surface controls, I'll say make that an extended by cubic. I can now subdivide my image and start to do things like grab these control points and actually model and manipulate my 3D. So this is actually taking that layer into a whole other realm right in the timeline. Now that's a little more than I really want in this set. So what we're going to do is go back and set it to be a flat object because that's what I really want to focus on. Let me undo my rotation. So you see we've got keying, color correction, tracking. That's what I wanted to use in here. So I go to my keying tools. So here we're going to use a luma key in this case, but just so you know, you've got 7 different keyers available inside of Smoke. Get the job done with whatever one needs to get done. Master key are one of my favorites, but I'm going to go to my lumens key. I'm also going to look at my mat with a hotkey. I'm just going to come in here and start choking this. So what do we say we're trying to do? We're trying to isolate the gentleman from the sky with the trees. So I can just choke this in here and maybe invert this. So now we're creating a mat. Now, looking at it though, I'm probably going to need to create some masks to really make sure for positive that I'm isolating the areas. Like maybe the greens that he's standing on. I want to create a mask on that. So let's look at the input image. I'll go to the first frame. And again, right here in my tool, there's my garbage mask tools. Again, just one environment, all these tools. I choose add. I come over here, and we're just going to click and drag a mask around this like so. Now I've got my mask. That's great. Now there's a camera movement happening. It's actually coming in on him, so I want to animate my mask to follow that. I also want to fine-tune the mask a little bit. So to do that, we're going to go into our tracker. Because of the fact there's a camera movement, I'll turn scaling on. So now when we step into the tracker, I get two tracker boxes. One of them is going to represent the X and Y position change, and one is going to represent my scaling change. I click Analyze. It's taken 4 seconds, not even, to analyze 75 frames, and it's done. We return back out here, and you can see my mask has now been animated for me. Okay, that was easy. What if you had something a little more complicated? What if your client said, I need you to isolate his pants. I need you to roto out that. That's going to be a little trickier, but watch this. We'll come in here. I'll add another mask, and I'm just going to draw and drag my control points around his legs like so. And I'm not even going to be overly concerned if I'm adding more control points than I really need because I know how powerful the tracking tools are in Smoke. So let's come up here, go there, we'll close off our mask. Okay, now if I had to roto this by hand, it's going to take a little while, right? Well, here's the power of Smoke's tracker. Select it, go in. I now have a tracker box for every single control point of that mask. I'm going to come in here and tell it to analyze all of these things at once, and I let Smoke do its magic. It's going through all 75 frames. It's got 14 tracker boxes that it's analyzing, and then when it's done, it has done the work for me. And it's taken less than 10 seconds. Think of the amount of time that would take to do by hand. We return back to our masking tool, and you can see what has happened. Now, obviously, if this was production, I would fine-tune that a little bit more, but that is a powerful tracker. All right, so now we've done what we wanted to do with this. If I go back into my timeline and I turn off the bottom layer, you can see we've isolated the guy. Perfect. Now let's go and add the text. So I navigate down here, and I'm going to add another gap effect. I had the wrong thing selected. Bear with me. Let's select this guy, and I want to have a gap effect in there. Okay, I'll manually expand it. What am I doing wrong, Mark?
You're good. Do it now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I want to add a text in that area. So we go over here to our text tool. I add text. I'm going to step right into the text tool, and just so you know, go to the first frame. I'll click in here, and we want to put the word Oakley in the sky behind him, right? So we select our text. We could spend an hour alone just demonstrating the text tool here. You can put your text on a path. You can animate it. You can do all these different presets to it, which is great. There's shadows, underscore, blah, blah, blah. But we're just going to focus on straight, simple 2D text. And I go back out to my timeline. And now if I navigate to the top layer, I've created the look that I wanted to do. This is where you run into a wall. I'm in a layer-based compositing environment. And yes, I can make things transparent and make them look like they're together, but I can't really interact with these elements. I can't take them in like a 3D environment and really start working with them. Was there anything you wanted to say, or should I just keep
No,
going?
actually, I was just going to say that same thing. I mean, this is where working in the timeline is great, and you can stack up filter effects, and that's fine. But at some point, you're going to reach a time when you need to go into what would traditionally be a compositing workflow. So Ken, how can we do this in Smoke without destroying the work we've done already, but stay in context of what we're doing?
So we talked about connect effects. We haven't got there yet. This is where the magic. This is where the really exciting part of this new Smoke, besides all the UI and all the stuff we've done. I select these 3 clips in my timeline, and I go to my tools. There's all my bread and butter tools I use every day, but then there's that one called Connect Effects. When I click that, we step into a node-based environment right inside my editor. So what Smoke has done, and I'll go to a 2-view layout so we can see this. Oh, sorry, I want this one to be my schematic. So what it's done is it added one of our main tools we have, which is called Action. Action is the 3D compositing environment.
Click on Action so they can see that the result is maintained. Yeah. So what it's done is it took the bottom layer and set it as my background. Then it took my text, added that as a layer. It took the footage that was keyed with the masking, with the tracking, and reconverted it all as another layer. So it's taken what I did in the timeline and put it in a 3D environment. So I think one of the things that's important here is how fast you can work and iterate. Now, if Ken had done some things like color correction effects to different things and axes, he could adjust the order. But I just want to show you guys one of the things that's interesting about this workflow. Ken, I'm going to throw you a curveball.
Yep.
can you go to the node bin? So these are all the different tools that are available inside of this workflow. So Ken has everything he did so far, plus he now has all of these tools available. So let me show you how cool this could be in an iterative workflow. Let me see what the whole scene looks like with a glow on top of it.
Okay, glow. I love this. I hit a hotkey. I get my tools. I take the node out. I just drop it. Boom. I've got my glow. Okay?
Cool. So that's okay, but I don't really like it there. So can you set your context on the output there for me? And then show me what it would look like if you put that just on the background.
Okay. This is the node-based environment. Pick it up, drag and drop it on the background.
Cool. So
that's
I like that
the flexibility.
Look. Let's go with that look.
Okay.
But you see, you get the idea. And we'll keep coming back to this a few times, but a really powerful way to work with effects and iterate and try different things creatively.
Okay, so now we want to go into action, our 3D compositing, and talk about why we really want to use 3D instead of just a layer-based composite environment. I'll switch this view over here to be what's called a working view. I'm going to lose my hotkeys. I'm going to go down here to go to working view. So this allows me to come in here and orbit and show you that we are in true 3D space. And also, if I select my layer, let me jump over here to my schematic to make sure I have it, and I want to move it closer to the camera because I want to separate these elements so I can put lights in between them.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of going
zoom out a little bit on the left side if you can. I just want everybody to see what those green lines are.
I'm sorry, that's our camera.
You're actually viewing everything through a camera. And what's really cool is you don't have to use this as a 3D perspective camera. And what you're going to see is how having that 3D data doesn't produce a 3D result. What it does is let you change this in ways that aren't really possible in the timeline.
So if I take my layer and I'm going to move it toward the camera, well, of course, it's going to start appearing larger because we're moving it toward the camera. And that's not what I want. I want to separate these elements to be able to do more in between them, but not let it scale. So this is where Smoke, again, gives you great, powerful features such as auto scale. I'm going to tell it, yes, I want to move it to the camera, but I want you to automatically scale that as it moves to the camera so it always stays the same size in the frame of the camera. This is giving me this flexibility for camera parallax and other elements like things that are further apart in distance. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to come over to my schematic. I've got my text over here just to explain in action, when you bring in a layer, it gets an axis. It's a transform tool that allows you to manipulate the layer in any way that you want. What I want to do is have the word Oakley actually move with those trees. So with the axis for this text, so obviously I can go and animate or manipulate that, I want to take that and have it tracked again. So we do the same thing we did before, but I'm going to use the trees this time on my background. Is that going to mess up my track? Let's find out.
Find out. You can always turn it off in the schematic view.
So I go over here, and I'm going to click Analyze. I love it. It's even doing it on top of the glow. That's how powerful the tracker is. So it goes through. It's going to track all that data. Again, X and Y on one, scaling on the other. So when it's done, we step back out. You can see what happens is my text has now been animated. It's offset a little bit. Oh, let me turn off my context. Bear with me. So it's been offset because of the tracking data. But here's the power of a node-based environment. I can go to my node bin. I can take another axis and just drag it and put it in between. So I have multiple levers of transformation control. You can parent one layer onto another. You can have one axis control everything in your scene. It is extremely flexible the way it works in this node-based environment. Now I'm thinking to myself, this looks good, but the truth is I am in 3D compositing. I'm in Action. Action has 3D tools. It has 3D text. So instead of using the flat 2D image that I created on my timeline, I'm going to go to my node bin. I'm going to bring in a 3D text element. I simply double-click on it. That's the workflow. Double-click on something, and it's going to take you to the parameters that you need. And I'll change my font to match the one we did before, which was discrete bold, and I'm going to set the size to be the same. So I've recreated what we did, and I can also go and take the tracking data. Oh, wait, one step. I'm sorry. I said 3D, right? It still looks flat, doesn't it? Well, that's because I haven't adjusted it yet. So right there's my text. Let me zoom in so you can see it. I'm looking down on my scene just so you know what's happening. And I take my text tool right here, and I'm going to create depth. So I'm actually starting to model my text into a 3D. Let me turn on an option called shading so we can see what's happening in the scene. And then as I rotate my text, you're going to see, yes, that is true 3D that I am creating inside of Action. Also, let's go further. I can start to model and bend my text and create a bevel edge or adjust it. And that's just because it comes in one way. I have all this flexibility of adjusting that. Let's do one more thing. While I think it's great that if we go to our parameters such as our color, I can change the color of my text and so on. I want to actually map a material on there, okay? So let's do this. Let's go out to our media. I'm going to choose it for my desktop, and I'm going to select this little golf ball image that I have. It comes in as a layer, as you'll see in my schematic, and if I wanted to use it in the scene, I could. But I just wanted to bring in that actual texture. So by bringing that texture in right here, I can now repurpose it and place it on my geometry. So we go to our node bin. I'm going to go right to my diffuse tools, and I take my diffuse map, and if I zoom in, you can see what I just did. I just mapped that material on my geometry, and I have unlimited control, such as going to the texture. I want to tell it to mirror and tile repeat. Why I do that is, now if I go to the axis for that texture, and I start to go and, whoa, pen disappeared. If I go here and start to scale that down, you can see I can make it fit the word just as I want it, so I create the effect that I want. Next thing I want to do is I want to repurpose this tracker that we used a minute ago, right? So I'll take this and I'll just drag off of it. I'm going to tell it, I want you to be the parent of my 3D text. And as soon as I do, the same thing happens. It shifts over, but it's very quickly. I can reposition this exactly where I want it to be. We can take our 2D flat text and hide it. And then the last thing I want to do is just bring it so it's behind my golfer. Now we're creating something pretty cool, okay? Want to take it one step further. Actually, we're going to take it to 11 now. I want to add lights. Again, Mark talked about color correction and all this other stuff. This is where we're going to really start to take this to a new place. I go back to my tools. I'm going to zoom back so we can see a little bit here. I'll take my light. I drag it in my scene. Look at this. I'm relighting the entire scene in 3D compositing environment. I am in my timeline. Do not forget that, okay? I know you're getting dizzy with all these amazing effects.
Show that timing view.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. That's another great point. Watch this. I go to timing view. There's my entire timeline that I had when I came in. What I selected has been brought into action inside of Connect Effects. I can alter and change every part of it, still live, non-destructive. That's a great part of this workflow. So this light we're going to use just to kind of light the entire scene so I can take it back in Z, put it back by my camera. All right. Now we want to go and bring in one more light, and I want to create a lens flare that's shooting behind the Oakley logo. So we take this and we drag it in. Again, that's cool in my opinion alone, but I'll position it over here. I'm going to drag it up in the view up by the A maybe, somewhere about there. And then when I add my lens flare, boom, a 3D lens flare has just been added in here. Now, the more important than anything, it respects the 3D alpha, the 3D geometry, the occlusion. It respects my alpha of my matte. It is true 3D inside a 3D environment. I always have to go and say, look, that's all true 3D.
Do your Z sort there. I think you knocked it out of order.
Yeah, I saw that. Thanks, Mark.
Backseat driver.
That's okay.
That's what producers are for.
That's right. So this is great. I'm happy with this. I'm dying to show my client, right? I think I've got it. I got it. He didn't like the shot, so we're going to go back into our timeline, right? Client shows up. They say, that's cool. I like it. I want changes. Now, if you were in a typical workflow where you're using multiple applications, you're going to have to leave your editor, go into other applications, make those adjustments, render them out, bring them back in, not in Smoke. I just take this. I say, give me another layer. I think I'm right. I think that's it. But the client wants to change.
Let's see it just as a silhouette.
Okay, exactly. The client says, I want to see a silhouette effect. I go right back into my tools. I'm still in Smoke. I come over here and I'm going to say, take that light. I'm just going to hide that. I have a totally different effect now. I go back to the timeline, and the client says, no, you were right. No, the client never says you were right. So here, that's the point. If I toggle between these, I've got this version right here. I've got this version right here, all in the timeline.
Let's render that.
Let's process that out. Okay, that's going to take less than 20 seconds. Think of what I'm rendering. Multiple layers, keying, color correction, tracking, volumetric 3D light effects. I'm in my timeline. It took 19 seconds to render that. That is ridiculously powerful.
Cool. Well, I'll let that finish rendering and you can play it back and then we'll go back and finish up the presentation. But this was really kind of a sampler demo, right? We just wanted to hit some of the high points, but we've got Smoke set up all over this booth. So if you want to see more, you can see how it works with green screen keying. You can see how it conforms from various other applications. You can see basic editorial, whatever you want to see. Look for anyone wearing a t-shirt like Ken's. That's a blue shirt, means he's a Smoke expert, and they can take you through the whole product. So let's go back to the keynote real quick. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about how you can get your hands on Smoke. Remember the key points that we talked about, this new UI that really was designed for editors and to connect editing and effects like never before. And of course, that new price point, really bringing this technology, taking what Autodesk does very well, high-end effects and finishing, and making it available in a really affordable and accessible workflow and package. Now, you probably want to get your hands on Smoke, so I've got some good news and some bad news. One of the things we were talking about is that Smoke will ship in the fall. And I say that's bad news because I think this is like Christmas morning, but you can't open your gifts until like September. So that's okay though, because we're actually going to take Smoke and make it available as a pre-release trial starting in June. So you guys can actually download a full working copy of the beta and you can use it until we ship this in September. We're so excited about this. We're so proud of it that we can't wait for people to start using this product. And you can pre-register today at autodesk.com/smoke trial. There's some cards over at the info desk that people will give you that has that web address on it. But please go register for this. We're really excited. We can't wait to see what you guys are going to do with it. And that's why Smoke is changing everything. So thanks for hanging out. Check out Ken's demos on the pods. Be sure to get more info on Smoke, and have a great rest of your NAB.